Welcome to the midday news. Let's head across now to Prime Minister Narendra Modi talking, in fact, on his talks with the Cambodian counterpart Hun Sen, and they're going to address now a joint press conference.
2018-2022 to be exchanged by Mrs. Phourong Sakona, Minister of Culture and Fine Arts of Cambodia, and Dr. Mahesh Sharma, Minister of State for Culture, Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The second document is credit line agreement between Exim Bank of India and the Government of Cambodia for a line of credit to finance the Stung Swa Hub Water Resource Development Project for US $36.9 million to be exchanged by Mr. Phan Phala, Under Secretary of State, Ministry of Economy and Finance of Cambodia, and by Secretary East, Srimati Preeti Saran, Ministry of External Affairs. Next is the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Agreement to be exchanged by Mr. Siang La Press, Advisor on Transnational Crime, Ministry of Interior of Cambodia, and Srimati Preeti Saran, Secretary East, Ministry of External Affairs. Fourth MOU is on cooperation for prevention of human trafficking to be exchanged on the Cambodian side by Mrs. Cho Bun Ang, Secretary of State of the Ministry of Interior, and by Srimati Preeti Saran, Secretary East, Ministry of External Affairs. Excellencies, this concludes the exchange of documents ceremony. I now request my colleague, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, to conduct the proceedings from here on.
Good afternoon, friends. I welcome you all to this press event. To begin the proceedings, may I request the Honorable Prime Minister of India to deliver his statement to the media.
Your Excellency.
Excellency, the Prime Minister, Mr. Hun Sen of the Empire of Cambodia, all the honorable members of his delegation, eminent guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Once again,
स्टेट विजिट 10 वर्ष के अंतराल के बाद हो रही है। यद्यपि प्रधानमंत्री जी, आप स्वयं भारत आपको भारत की आर्थिक प्रगति और सामाजिक परिवर्तनों को नजदीक से देखने का एक और अच्छा अवसर मिला है। 2 दिन पहले हमने आसियान इंडिया कमेमोरेटिव समिट के दौरान आसियान भारत सहयोग पर विस्तार से चर्चा की। भारत और 10 आसियान देशों के नेताओं ने महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय लिए ताकि भारत और आसियान का सहयोग आने वाले वर्षों में नई ऊंचाइयों को प्राप्त करे। इस संबंध में प्रधानमंत्री हुन सेन ने मेरे निमंत्रण को स्वीकार कर समिट में उपस्थित होकर हमारा सम्मान बढ़ाया है। यही नहीं, उन्होंने समिट के दौरान विचार विमर्श और उसके निर्णयों में बहुमूल्य योगदान दिया और इसके लिए उन्हें हृदय से धन्यवाद देता हूं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत कंबोडिया के पुरातन काल के ऐतिहासिक संबंध पिछली शताब्दी के उत्तरार्ध में और भी प्रगाढ़ हुए, जब कंबोडिया के राजनीतिक परिवर्तनों के दौरान भारत अपने पुराने मित्र और उसके नागरिकों के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर के खड़ा रहा। प्रधानमंत्री हुन सेन और मैं इस बात पर सहमत है कि समसामयिक विषयों आवश्यकताओं के अनुसार आज हमें अपने संबंधों को हर क्षेत्र में और भी गहरा बनाने की जरूरत है। भारत कंबोडिया के साथ अपनी साझेदारी को आर्थिक, सामाजिक विकास, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, सांस्कृतिक, व्यापार, टूरिज्म और सामान्य लोगों के बीच संबंध जैसे सभी क्षेत्रों में बढ़ाने को तैयार ही नहीं, प्रतिबद्ध है। हमारे सांस्कृतिक संबंधों में हमारी साझा विरासत का एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा है 12वीं शताब्दी में बनाए गए ऐतिहासिक अंकोर वाट मंदिर का रिस्टोरेशन इस सहयोग का उदाहरण है। भारत को प्रसन्नता है कि कंबोडिया में इस सांस्कृतिक विरासत के संरक्षण और संवर्धन के लिए हम योगदान कर सके। हमारी भाषाएं भी पाली और संस्कृत के स्रोतों से निकली हैं। यह हर्ष का विषय है कि हमारे ऐतिहासिक और सांस्कृतिक संबंधों की जड़ें बहुत गहरी हैं और इसलिए आपसी टूरिज्म को बढ़ावा देने के लिए अनेक अनेक संभावनाएं भी हैं। फ्रेंड्स, भारत के लिए यह खुशी की बात है कि हमारे मित्र देश कंबोडिया तेजी से आर्थिक प्रगति कर रहा है और पिछले 2 दशक में सालाना 7% की वृद्धि कंबोडिया ने करके दिखाई है। भारत दुनिया की सबसे तेज गति से वृद्धि करने वाले बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था है, क्योंकि हमारे मूल्य और संस्कृति मिलती जुलती हैं। इसलिए हमारे दोनों देशों के बीच व्यापार को बढ़ाने में एक स्वाभाविक सिनर्जी हो सकती है। कंबोडिया की लिबरल इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज और आसियान इकोनॉमिक कम्युनिटी की स्थापना कंबोडिया में भारतीय निवेश के लिए एक अच्छा अवसर प्रदान करती है। खासतौर पर स्वास्थ्य, औषधि, इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी, कृषि, ऑटोमोबाइल और ऑटो पुर्जे, टेक्सटाइल, ऐसे अनेक क्षेत्रों में हम सहयोग कर सकते हैं। मुझे विश्वास है कि आने वाले वर्षों में हमारे द्विपक्षीय व्यापार में वृद्धि होगी और भारत से और भी अधिक निवेशक तथा व्यापारी कंबोडिया में लाभप्रद उपस्थिति बना सकेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, डेवलपमेंट कोऑपरेशन भारत कंबोडिया के संबंधों का एक महत्वपूर्ण हिस्सा है। कंबोडिया के सामाजिक आर्थिक विकास में एक महत्वपूर्ण साथी के तौर पर भारत की प्रतिबद्धता हमेशा ही रही है और आगे भी रहेगी। हमने कंबोडिया सरकार की जरूरतों के मुताबिक प्रोजेक्ट के लिए कई और लाइन ऑफ क्रेडिट प्रस्तावित की हैं, खासतौर पर स्वास्थ्य, कनेक्टिविटी, डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी के क्षेत्रों में। हर साल भारत कंबोडिया में 5 क्विक इम्पैक्ट प्रोजेक्ट कार्यान्वित कर रहा है। इन प्रोजेक्ट की संख्या सालाना 5 से बढ़ाकर 10 करने का निर्णय हमने लिया है। 500 करोड़ रुपए का प्रोजेक्ट डेवलपमेंट फंड हमने स्थापित किया है। इस फंड का इस्तेमाल भारत के उद्योग और बिजनेस का विस्तार करने के लिए और सप्लाई चेन को कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव बनाने के लिए किया जा सकता है। हम कंबोडिया में एक सेंटर ऑफ एक्सीलेंस इन आईटी एंड आईटी एनेबल्ड सर्विसेज की स्थापना कर रहे हैं। भारत 5 दशक से भी अधिक पुराने इंडियन टेक्नोलॉजी एंड इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन प्रोग्राम में कंबोडिया का सक्रिय साथी है। 1400 से भी अधिक कंबोडिया के नागरिकों ने इस प्रोग्राम के द्वारा कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग की ट्रेनिंग हासिल की है। हम भविष्य में भी यह कार्यक्रम जारी रखेंगे और कंबोडिया की जरूरतों के मुताबिक इसका विस्तार के लिए भी हम तैयार हैं। फ्रेंड्स, अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच पर हमारे दोनों देशों के बीच गहरा सहयोग है और अनेक क्षेत्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंचों पर हमारे विश्वसनीय संबंध रहे हैं। मौजूदा सिनर्जी को और भी बढ़ाते हुए भारत और कंबोडिया एक दूसरे का अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच पर समर्थन प्रदान करते रहेंगे। अंत में मैं प्रधानमंत्री हुन सेन को भारत के अभिन्न मित्र और सम्मानीय अतिथि के रूप में उनकी इस भारत यात्रा के लिए धन्यवाद देता हूं। मैं आशा करता हूं कि उनका भारत में प्रवास सुखद और यादगार रहेगा। मैं यह भी आश्वासन देता हूं कि भारत आने वाले समय में कंबोडिया के साथ और भी घनिष्ठ सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए तैयार हैं, ताकि कंबोडिया और उसके नागरिकों के साथ हमारे गहरे और परंपरागत गहरे संबंध और भी मजबूत हो सके। फिर एक बार आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. May I now request the Honorable Prime Minister of Cambodia to deliver his remarks to the media.
Adam Narendra ខ្ញុំពិតជាមានការសប្បាយរីករាយនិងសូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណចំពោះពាក្យពេចន៍ដ៏លើកតែគួរលើកទឹកចិត្តហើយជាពាក្យពេចន៍តែពោរពេញទៅដោយមិត្តភាពសម្រាប់
True that I know India when I was just 29 years old as the Deputy Prime Minister and Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Cambodia. In 1981, I visited India. To date, it has been 37 years already in which I made the first visit here. Undergoing official visit and working visit, making cooperation of the two countries more deepened and more trustful. The history underlined that the people of Cambodia, of more than a million, provided support and recognized Cambodia at the time of most difficulties of the Pol Pot regime. It's the biggest democratic countries that recognize Cambodia since 1981. And since then, Cambodia benefit from the provision of assistance from the project of cooperation and from the human resource development, and become the solid foundation for the Cambodian officials to receive training and to fulfill their job back home in Cambodia until today. I would like to take this opportunity to highly appreciate the initiative of Excellency's Prime Minister Modi, who select this best time to organize the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit, the 25th years, plus the celebration that the head of state and government of ASEAN can also participate in the celebration of the 69th Republic Day of India. And also, for me, taking this opportunity that I'm able to have the official visit for the project of cooperation. I'm really proud with this good relation in the past until today, and hope that it will be better even in the future. In our discussion, we discuss in depth and with confidence, so that we have the signing of the agreement, MOU, and hope that in the future this agreement would be implemented successfully. I'm very pleased to see that in bilateral as well as in the summit between India and ASEAN, Excellency provide many initiatives in relation to strengthen the cooperation with ASEAN countries. Mean the Look East policies and Act East policy. And Cambodia also benefit from this policy. I can also stress to the media people that my visit at this time, I can find the special point in which Cambodia can help Cambodia. In the use IT, use to help the agricultural sectors. Within that, I request to Excellency's Prime Ministers so that India can give priority to helping Cambodia about the making analysis of the soil during the crop zoning in Cambodia. That would help Cambodia and help Cambodian farmers within that. Tourism and other sectors also develop, and hope that Indian investors will go to Cambodia. And this afternoon I will meet all of them with the Indian business people, and hope that India will invest more in Cambodia. I'm grateful with the cooperation, including in the international arena, in the region and the international arena. And we also discuss about the more operation, but on with the Cambodian UN peacekeeping operation and Cambodian peacekeeping project. There are many work that we need to do together. And what I hope and expecting that Excellency's Prime Ministers will visit Cambodia in accordance to appropriate time. Excellency's visit will bring the success, additional success to our cooperation, especially to promote Indian tourists and investors to go to Cambodia. And once again, we'd like to say thanks, Excellencies, for the hospitalities extended to me and my delegation. And thank you to the people of India that all the time provide support to Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. This concludes this press event. Thank you all for joining.
All right, so there you have it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Cambodian counterpart Hun Sen addressing a joint press conference after holding delegation-level talks. While Prime Minister Modi expressed confidence in increased developmental cooperation between both the countries, Prime Minister Hun Sen of Cambodia appreciated, in fact, India's gesture of inviting leaders of the ASEAN nations and also, giving them the honor of being the chief guests at the Republic Day parade, a first, in fact, for India and hope that India could contribute more, not just in Cambodia, the ASEAN region, but also across the world. Now, remember, Prime Minister Hun Sen is on a one-day state visit to India today after the two-day India-ASEAN commemorative summit. Cambodia is, of course, important for India in geopolitical terms. So it is, in fact, part of Indian geopolitical, economical, national interests in Southeast Asia. And they have, of course, gained momentum in recent years, especially in order to bolster India's standing as a regional power and to avert the region from falling completely into China's economic dominance. Interesting to note, in fact, that out of the 10 ASEAN nations that, in fact, attended, of course, the parade that were in India for the past 2 to 3 days, Cambodia is one of the countries, apart from Laos, that is, of course, being seen as close to China. And this is, in fact, a country that India is, of course, looking at as far as more initiatives are concerned, as far as more economical and developmental work, strategic as well, is concerned. In fact, if you could in fact, this manifests in some recent initiatives from the New Delhi administration, particularly to replace its two-decade-old Look East policy with an Act East policy to revitalize and solidify its regional engagement. Cambodia, of course, widely seen as I said, one of China's closest allies in the region, is under the spotlight as part of India's comprehensive engagement strategies. And hence, this meeting, of course, was being seen very keenly. If you note, the other 9 leaders, of course, met the Prime Minister. They had bilateral talks earlier, of course, but this was after the summit ended and after, of course, the parade. And Prime Minister Modi on Friday held bilateral talks with his Malaysian counterpart, Najib Razak, and the talks focus on ways to enhance counter-terror cooperation and boost ties in areas of defense, trade and investment. Razak is among the 10 ASEAN leaders who participated in the India-ASEAN commemorative summit and watched the Republic Day celebrations at Rajpath yesterday.
They talked about the excellent cooperation in trade and investment and of the participation of Malaysian companies in implementing a lot of road projects in different states of India. And they talked about further cooperation in railways and infrastructure, about enhancing law enforcement agencies, again, countering terrorism and countering radicalization, existing very good defense cooperation with Malaysia. And they talked about undertaking, enhancing this, particularly in the light of the fact that both our countries, India and Malaysia, do have common defense platforms where we can work together.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held bilateral meetings with Prime Minister of Laos, PDR Thongloun Sisoulith in New Delhi. During the meeting, both leaders discussed issues of mutual interest.
Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, invited a business delegation from Lao PDR to undertake road shows in major cities to attract Indian investments in Laos. And here there is a project development fund which has been announced, which in fact is intended to encourage Indian investors and businessmen to invest in the CLMV countries. And we hope that this particular roadshow will give a boost.
And on the historic occasion of the 69th Republic Day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote an op-ed in which in fact was featured in 27 newspapers in 10 languages across the 10 ASEAN countries. In the article, Shared Values, Common Destiny, published in the Straits Times, Prime Minister Modi highlighted the importance of India's ties with ASEAN nations. In his piece, he reiterated that India and ASEAN relations are free from contests and claims and believe in sovereign equality of all nations irrespective of size, and support for free and open pathways of commerce and engagement. He also highlighted India's centuries-old ties with its eastern neighbours and said that the future of these ties looks even more promising. Prime Minister Modi further said that he had the privilege to host the ASEAN leaders for the commemorative summit to mark 25 years of ASEAN-India partnership. External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Ravish Kumar tweeted a snapshot of the op-ed published, terming the act as an exceptional gesture of friendship nurtured by shared culture and civilizational linkages. Now, all 10 ASEAN leaders have conveyed to India their desire to see India play a more assertive role in the strategically important Indo-Pacific region while recognizing the country's growing stature in ensuring regional peace and stability. For the first time, ASEAN nations adopted unanimous resolutions against hegemonistic designs of China and Pakistan's attitude towards terrorism. Without naming the two countries, all ASEAN nations join hands with India in condemning cross-border terrorism emanating from one country and affecting the other. The resolutions were adopted as Delhi Declaration at the conclusion of the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit held in Delhi. A Delhi Declaration was adopted at the end of the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit. It includes Indian concerns on cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan and supports its stand against Pakistan's policy to fund and shelter terrorists. The declaration further reiterates commitment to a comprehensive approach to combat terrorism, promotes close cooperation in disrupting terrorist networks by countering cross-border movement of fighters and their misuse of internet, including social media, strengthens cooperation to stop terrorism financing efforts, supports efforts to target terrorist groups and sanctuaries, states that there can be no justification for acts of terror on any grounds whatsoever.
The need for working collectively in combating the menace of terrorism, also of working collectively in countering radicalization. Here, in specific discussions that our Prime Minister had with the Prime Minister of Malaysia and Indonesia, they both shared their own experience and the legislation that they have introduced. Maritime cooperation was another one, specifically relating to handling both traditional and non-traditional security challenges, including humanitarian disaster relief, security cooperation, and freedom of navigation were the key areas that were identified for maritime cooperation.
The ASEAN nations, along with India, also condemned the Chinese attitude in South China Sea. The declaration says that to promote peace in the ASEAN region, the contentious issues must be resolved according to the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. India and the ASEAN nations also pledged to strengthen economic and trade cooperation. The Delhi Declaration says both India and ASEAN can become biggest trade blocs, and to fulfill this dream, they decided to establish the ASEAN-India Trade and Investment Centre to strengthen business-to-business relations. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV. That's all we have for you on the Midday News. Thank you for joining us.